podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are listening to this. This is another special guest interview where we welcome Ian from the Reds Report, which is a Barnsley podcast, to talk to us all about our new goalkeeper, Liam Roberts. Ian, hello, mate. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for the offer to come on.
No, I really appreciate you coming on and looking forward to hearing a bit more about Liam Roberts. It's something that I think he's been training with us for a little while now and then kind of got officially announced on Monday. And, you know, that's now our 2 goalkeepers signed up for the season. So really keen to understand a little bit more from someone who would definitely know more about him than I would. So, yeah, thank you for coming on the show, mate.
You're welcome.
So I'll start off with the first obvious question. You know, tell me a little bit more about Liam Roberts.
Well, we signed him, I suppose, last summer after we'd lost both our keepers. Brad Collins, who'd been with us for a couple of seasons, was our number one. But we also lost Harry Eisted to Charlton, who came in about the January. And because Collins got injured, Eisted stepped up and had a great second half of the season, which culminated us getting to the playoff final against Sheffield Wednesday. And we'd hoped that we could have kept Eisted, but that didn't happen. So in come Liam Roberts, somebody who we knew nothing about. And I think really from day one, he really immersed himself in the club. And I think that's what you'll find with him. And speaking to some Northampton fans and Middlesbrough fans previously, his previous clubs, very similar there. He's a big lad. Pretty reliable.
6'3", something like that.
Yeah, he's quite. He's a tall lad, and he's vocal on the pitch. He'll get a real good rapport with the fans. The way he celebrates goals. That first game, I thought he was going to end up in the back of our home end. The way he was celebrating some of the goals and stuff. So he's enthusiastic. He's like I say, he'll shout and scream at his defenders. And if you asked Barnsley fans now, would we have wanted Liam Roberts to have signed permanently for this season ahead? I reckon a good 95+% would have said we'd love to have signed him up. So that shows you how much we took to him and he took to us. So yeah, good luck to the lad. It's just a shame he couldn't have another few seasons at Oakwell.
And that's really interesting because, you know, by all accounts, he was your first choice goalkeeper. He had a good season. As you said, he appeared to enjoy it there. And he's come to the Den. And if I'm being honest, I don't think if I was a betting man, I would say he wouldn't start the season as our number one. So, right. You know, what I guess you were surprised by him not signing for you. But yeah. What do you think from his perspective was in the decision making to not sign with you and to potentially play second fiddle to another goalkeeper at the Den?
Yeah, it's interesting. We never know with our board what's going on with signings and comings and goings. And like I say, most of last summer, we hoped that Harry Eisted was in a similar situation. His loan was open. We wanted him to sign permanently in the club. For some reason, let that one go. Got Roberts in, and for some reason, they've let that one go. I suspect whether he's been given, you know, you can't blame the guy for wanting to better himself and test himself in a higher division.
Yeah,
I don't think he'll be one to rest on his laurels and want to play second fiddle. So obviously it's a challenge for him. It's a great opportunity to get back in the Championship. Just a bit. You see, he did like it at Barnsley, but I suppose as a player, if his agent comes along and says you've got X, Y, and Z clubs are interested, and Millwall, for instance, might not guarantee you first team football, but it's down to you to fight for that number one shirt, then you grasp it, wouldn't you? Absolutely. You're out of contract. You got a chance to play in the Championship at a higher level. You grasp that all day long. So we wish him well in that respect. I don't blame him for anything like that, for making that decision.
Yeah, and I could be wrong, right? But I guess my assumption is we've just paid roughly £500,000 for another goalkeeper you might be familiar with. I'll ask you that in a moment. So it would surprise me if we were to not, go with Lucas Jensen as our number one, been given the number one shirt. Not that necessarily means anything these days. But I think what we now have from a Millwall standpoint is two goalkeepers that had two, really good seasons in League One, good ages, varying attributes that hopefully do create some kind of fight for that shirt, when I think that's something that will definitely be welcomed by the Millwall fans. But, the other goalkeeper we did sign was Lucas Jensen. Do you recall seeing him last season for Lincoln?
No, I know Lincoln had a great run in the second half of the season. They really came late on with, which I thought they were going to get in the playoffs and then probably go all the way through, because there's always a team, and it was Oxford in the end, that comes with a late charge with form and goes through. And that was looking like Lincoln at one point. I don't recall much of him as much, but I did keep an eye. You couldn't help but notice the run that Lincoln were on in that second half of the season, and they're a very tough team to play against, and whether home or away. And I think really when you were saying about you'd signed him for $500,000 or whatever, and then obviously Roberts isn't likely to start, but then I kind of really, for him, perfect example would be Brad Collins, who was our number one, went to Coventry. Probably we thought he'd be their number two. And whether it's injury or form, whatever, he's played week in, week out for Coventry in the Championship.
Yeah.
So,
true.
What's to say injuries, poor form, Roberts will knuckle down and he will take his opportunity. So even though you might not be guaranteed first spot, you never know in football how this might play out. And he may get his chance like Collins did at Coventry, and he's a regular for them.
Yeah, and I think it's despite me making assumptions, they come in at a level playing field, right? And who knows, opportunity to impress in training. And as you say, he strikes me from his initial interview, and we'll come on to talk about his character later on. But he strikes me from the initial interview that he's very hungry, he's very driven, someone that won't just take being second spot like you're lying down, so which is fantastic. But another question I wanted to ask you was, I'm a bit of a stats man, and when we signed Lucas Jensen, we looked at the stats, and he was joint number one for clean sheets and highest, save percentage and goals prevented and all that kind of stuff. Liam Roberts doesn't appear to be in the top six from the stats that I've seen. It's not all about stats, of course it isn't, but how would you respond to knowing that he wasn't in the top six, and how do you think that plays a bearing on your assessment of his performances last year?
Last year, when I compare it to the season before, when I got to the playoff final, we scored both seasons. We scored very much similar amount of goals, about 83 or something like that in the season. But last season, we conceded probably another 20 odd goals, and that was our downfall. And you can't really point the finger at Roberts too much. We went into March. I think we were never out of the top six from October onwards, and we got to early March, and with games in hand and the form we were on, we had the real opportunity of getting second, and it fell away drastically. Our form fell off a cliff, and that wasn't down to that wasn't Roberts. That was right through the team. We'd just signed a huge centre half, Dominic Pines from America. He started really well, then got an injury and he was out for the season. And the back three, they tinkered with the back three, back four. And just as a team, we conceded far too many goals from set pieces. But again, that wasn't down to Roberts. That was individual errors, people not marking, people not learning, midfielders not getting back. The whole team, whereas the season before, we defended from the front, right back, and we had a totally different mindset. Whereas last season, we were a little bit soft-centered, and that I would point the finger more at the players in front of Roberts. So that probably damaged his stats, really, in the end, because we did ship too many goals. By the end of it, we needed to be scoring 3 and 4 a game to get something out of it. And that's kind of what played out in the playoffs against Bolton. So, yeah, stats-wise, I wouldn't... We had bigger issues within defensively as a team rather than just, the keeper being at fault for most of them.
Okay, well that's
a bit more reassuring.
Yeah, reassuring to hear. So then, what do you think are his key attributes? You mentioned earlier around sort of being quite commanding, but yeah, what would you say are his top 3 attributes?
He's not afraid to come for crosses and command his box. He's not afraid of speaking his mind on the pitch. And I read one of his interviews just recently at joining Millwall, and he clearly seems to be buzzing about that. And I think what you'll get a vocal person in the changing room and on the training ground as well. So he'll immerse himself in there. He's a great shot stopper. His main attribute is he's a great one-on-one. In any of that kind of scenario, he's a great shot stopper. Really spreads himself. The downside is his probably distribution could be a lot better, but yeah, comes for crosses, commands his box, and is a good shot stopper. They were the key things I would say.
That's really interesting because we did a similar podcast when we signed Lucas Jensen, and the qualities that you just said Liam Roberts has, and the area of development, should we say, is exactly the same as Lucas Jensen. So it's almost like we've deliberately gone out to sign goalkeepers that distribution's not that important. And I think in a Neil Harris team, that's probably right. We're never really going to be playing out from the back, and distribution can mean many things, can't it?
Yeah.
Ian? I think it can mean, are you comfortable with the ball at your feet and dribbling it out? Or it can mean, can you lump it 80 yards, right? So there's
and a lot of it would probably the longer clearances would often kind of veer off to the touchline quite a bit rather than arrowing them straight down the pitch to the centre forward or something. He didn't strike me as particularly uncomfortable with it at his feet, but I think the defence in front of him weren't comfortable either with it, so he would go long. But he's not quite pinpoint with his longer range passing. It would be something he needs to work on, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we share this in the description, by the way. But you did a really interesting article on Liam Roberts, getting views from Northampton fans, Middlesbrough fans, and one of the things that I picked up from the Middlesbrough fan was that, again, the distribution element, and that was why at the time Zach Steffen. Obviously, they went on and signed, I think it was Senny Dieng, who became their number 1. But quite clearly in a Michael Carrick system, that distribution element is really, really important. And their fans just felt, as a shot stopper, there was no difference, but that the distribution was better. But I guess that leads me to my next question, which is, he has played for a championship club before in Middlesbrough, wasn't really the number 1. From what you've seen of him, and also, you've been in the championship with Barnsley before, do you think he is capable of stepping up to the championship?
I believe so, yes. Like I say, apart from his distribution, which I'm sure he's aware of himself, he's quite a solid keeper. And like I say, a straw poll of Barnsley fans would say they'd love to have kept him for another season. He's not been afraid to go down the leagues. He went to Walsall. He's knocked around on loan. He's not afraid to go out and play. He wants to play. And get his form up and move around. So it's not like he's one of these players who'll just sit on the bench and take a payday or whatever. So he's had a taste of the championship, like you say, albeit probably limited with Middlesbrough. Believes in his own abilities. So, why not have another crack at the championship?
Yeah. And all of his clubs have been Midlands or higher. So I think we're sort of the first club maybe fancied a year in London. Don't know, because that's we signed him on an initial 12 months. But another thing I want to touch on is his character. So you've kind of alluded to it, but I'd love to hear more. The articles that I read, again, plugging that, there was something really interesting around how he embraced Middlesbrough. He won tons of community awards. So Millwall, we have a really good dressing room, and that's really important because we don't have the luxuries of big budgets. We have to have a core and a group of players that are built, there's a camaraderie there. They're there to achieve a certain thing, and that's how dare I say it, that's how we'll be successful next season, with a touch of quality, of course. But so signing good people is really important to us. What can you tell me about Liam's character?
I think really that when he came into the club, you listen to him in his interviews. He's optimistic. He's positive. He will go out of his way to learn about the club and embrace it. His relationship, and I know he's done this at some of the other clubs, when the stand behind his goal, he will absolutely join in with celebrations and with goals, and fans see that. Fans see that there's a player here who's playing for the shirt, who understands the club and wants to embrace it. Doesn't shy away from interviews. He's happy to speak. And I think fans buy into that, don't they? It's an emotional game, it's an emotional sport, and the fact that he will absolutely and I don't mean like antics or something. It's just if you score a goal, he doesn't just quietly have a moment to himself. He's like jumping up and down, and he's really giving it to the home fans and stuff behind the goal, and fans love that sort of stuff, and it just breeds from there really, and then he steps forward with interviews and. People just you can take to him. That's the thing, you can take to him.
Yeah, and we've been fortunate over the last few years, well, probably go beyond that, to have goalkeepers that are big characters too. The reason we're in the market for any goalkeeper is because Bart Bielkowski, who was a mainstay of the team, excellent goalkeeper, has moved on, and unfortunately, we had the tragic loss of Matty Sarkic, who unfortunately passed away over the summer, who was also, a fantastic character from all of the accounts I've read. So I think having a goalkeeper that is a big character is important. And I think that from everything I've read, Liam Roberts also appeared to be a very popular member of the dressing room wherever he was. So that's great. So I think, we're signing a goalkeeper that's this, the point of being a goalkeeper, especially at Millwall, is to stop the ball going in the net. And he sounds like he's good at that. He's going to be a good dressing room person. He's a good egg, and he's going to endear himself to the fans. And I think, look, that's all we can really ask for. So absolutely. Delighted to hear that. How do you replace him then? I'd love to know just from your perspective. Have you replaced him yet?
We've got we signed a lad from Walsall. Again, we're starting from scratch again. Don't know a great deal about him. All eyes will be on him. So we have replaced him, but time will tell. Like I said, we seem to go through goalkeepers quite quickly. They either do really well for us and get sold on, and we can't hold. We don't have that power financially to hold on to players. We know that it's a selling club. Try and buy them cheap and sell them high and develop them and sell them on. So we have replaced him, but I'm not seeing enough. Obviously, pre-season still. They've only had two friendlies, and they're currently in like a training camp at Loughborough University where they're doing a lot of physical work and bonding stuff. So they won't play for another week. So we've not really cut ties on the new guy, but
right.
But they've got him in early anyway. It was one of the first signings was to replace Roberts.
Well, that's good. Yeah, to get especially a goalkeeper, so you can build that relationship with defence and stuff. That's really important. Another player that it's just come to mind that I should definitely ask you just whilst I have you here is Callum Styles.
I was going to ask you about Callum.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Callum Styles because we signed him on loan, and
I'm really curious. I'm really curious to get your reaction because I know he got an injury, didn't he? He got an injury. Was it about the February or March and curtailed this season? We'd heard that he was doing all right up to that point, but obviously I'd rather get it from the horse's mouth exactly what he was like and what you thought, because obviously ultimately you didn't sign him.
Yeah. So I think and listen, there might be other perspectives. It's just mine, right? But I think his first game he played left wing back. And he was outstanding. I think he got man of the match, and we were like, what a player. And being really honest, I was really surprised we signed him. He's always one of those players from afar I've looked at and gone, cool, I'd love to sign a player like that, because he's not a typical Millwall player. He's almost a little bit more elegant on the ball than a lot of players. And that's not doing a disservice. It's just the reality of the players that we attract. And then he was just a bit up and down from that point onwards. He played in various different positions. You could tell that he wanted to play in the centre of the park, but under a Gary Rowett system, which we had at the time, he didn't really flourish there. He looked better for us as a left wing back in a five. Then he had injuries, but you could tell there's obvious quality, and for the right price, I would have tried to sign him. But I think the combination of the price that you wanted and the fact that, I'm being honest, he might be a little bit too soft to play in a Millwall team. That's just, other Mill fans might scream at this, but that's my interpretation of it. So he ended up going to Sunderland, didn't he? But that was my take on him. Obvious quality. No denying that on the ball, but maybe just a little bit too soft off the ball. I don't know.
Yeah, he had one great season. I mean, he played a few seasons. He had one great season in the when we had Valérien Ismail as the manager, and we got to the playoff semi-final for the Premier League, losing to Swansea. And he played regularly, and he scored and assisted, and he's got a great left peg, and he can play left wing back, left winger. He likes to play on the left side of a central three. Sometimes I think he's a luxury player. And like I say, physically, he's not imposing. I just feel that I wonder whether he's got a bit of ideas of grandeur. He clearly wants to play in a higher league, and that's fair enough. I think he should be playing at least at the Championship, and he's been playing for Hungary, and he's had a little bit of a spell in the Euros. But he's not doing enough when he comes back to Barnsley, because obviously it didn't work out at Sunderland. And when he started,
is he not permanent now?
No, they've not took the option up. But then they've chopped and changed the money. Yeah, so that, I mean, I'm not sure about his performances, but certainly they've chopped and changed their manager that many times last season that he's probably been a victim of that, and they just chose not to take the option up. And he came back to us last summer, and he played a few games in the August, and we knew he was probably going to go back out on loan, but he just didn't have his heart in it, and he could be one of the best players in League One. But he clearly just doesn't want to. It's frustrating for us because he doesn't want to be here. But you think, well, if you actually knuckle down and play really well week in, week out, you'll get that move. Somebody will come in for you.
Yeah.
It's reported that there is a release clause of 2 million, which was put in. I think when he come on loan to you, but suddenly signed a new contract with us. It was clearly something a deal to help everybody out. So Barnsley would get a fee for him if they sold him, etc. But I just don't think he matches. He probably we could have probably commanded that fee when he was playing really well under Ismail. But now I think you'd probably take 750,000 or something. His form's dropped off. But I think some of that is he kind of thinks this is beneath me in League One. But there is a player in there, but he needs to do it consistently, and he's not. He'll play one good game every 3 or 4 or 5 maybe, and that's the problem. You in the Championship, you need people on it every game, don't you? That's the thing.
I think, spot on, mate. I think we're saying the same thing. I think he at times just disappeared from games. And every club's different, but a club like Millwall at the Den, if you go missing for a little while, you're going to get found out. And he's. I would imagine technically he would probably be one of, if not a best player if we signed him. But you need a little bit more than that to play for Millwall. And I think that's probably what it is. And I think that if it was my money, would I pay 2 million for him? No, I wouldn't. Would I pay 500 grand, 750 with add-ons? Probably. So I think that's where the issue lies. So
yeah, definitely.
Interesting, mate. So final question before we round up. What are your hopes for the season as a Barnsley fan?
Well, I'd love promotion, but I think last season was, and quite a lot of people have said this, and mates I've got of other League One sides. Last season was quite a poor league, really, because the year before, when you had like Sheffield Wednesday got something like 96 points and only come third. You had Plymouth and Ipswich. I can't remember which one got like 100 points. You needed to be mega consistent, and it was a really tough League One that season. Last season, Derby weren't outstanding, but got promoted. Portsmouth were a consistent team. Fair play to them. They bought the league. But apart from that, it was very much of a muchness. But then this season, you've got Birmingham have dropped down and a blasting the League One transfer record every week. Huddersfield have come down and recruited really well. Rotherham have come down and recruited about 11 players. So them 3 are going to be expecting to go straight up. Plus, then you've got your usual suspects, your Boltons, Barnsleys, Peterboroughs. So I think this season it's going to be real. If you wanted to get promoted, you needed to get out of that league last season, because this season is going to be really, really tough. But yeah, it will be promotion. But I think if we can push for a playoff place, because we're back to square one, we've got a new manager, it's start from scratch. We're probably not going to hit some form until we've got a couple of months into the season and everybody's bedded in. So it's almost like this constant cycle we have where we lose a manager in the summer and we start all over again. But if we could have a push for the playoffs, I'd be happy.
Yeah. Yeah, and Joe, it's really interesting. You didn't mention our dear friends down the road, Charlton, in your mix.
Well, yeah. I mean, I must admit, I think they were probably one of our favourites to go up last season because of the recruitment we'd done, and they were awful for the first half of the season. I mean, they might be different now with the manager they've got in from Luton. You know, he's had time to bed in now. With Blackpool, I'll be expecting Blackpool to be up there as well. So it's going to be a really tough league. So I'm quite realistic with the chances, really. If we can push for that 6th spot, I think I'll be quite happy looking at the teams that are in that league.
Well, I'd much rather have you in the top 6, mate, than Birmingham or Charlton. So I wish you the best in that. Listen, mate, that was fantastic. Really good conversation. Obviously, the Callum Styles bit as well. So thank you very much for coming on. Really do appreciate it. Just want to, before we close out, how can any people listen to this find you and your own podcast?
So the podcast is Reds Report. So if you go mainly on Twitter, look for Reds Report, you'll find the Barnsley podcast on there, the Twitter account. The website, which has all the podcasts and some written articles, is redsreport.co.uk.
Great. Yeah, please be sure to go and check that out. And we'll put your article you wrote on Liam Roberts as well in the description, so all fans can have a read on that. But no, mate, I think that's it. Just really interesting. Great to talk to you. Thanks for coming on, and wish you the best for the season.
Yeah, and you, all the best.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Sports Social Podcast Network.